Reality does not exist until you look at it. That is not poetry, it is physics. In the quantum world, every particle occupies all possible states simultaneously, described by a mathematical wave of probabilities. Yet the moment it is observed, that wave collapses into one concrete outcome, as if the universe waits for a witness before deciding what is real. This is the reality collapse paradox. The world appears solid and independent, yet its very existence seems to depend on your active observation. In the famous double-slit experiment, a single electron passes through two slits at once, forming an interference pattern, proof that it behaves like a wave of possibilities. But when detectors watch which slit it goes through, the pattern disappears. The electron chooses a single path only when someone tries to see it. Observation doesn't merely reveal reality, it creates it. The observer is not outside the experiment, but woven into its outcome. The universe is, in a measurable sense, aware of being watched. This paradox demolishes the line between mind and matter. It suggests that consciousness is not a passive spectator, but an active participant in the construction of the physical world. The act of measurement, once thought objective, becomes inseparable from awareness itself. The cosmos, instead of being a vast machine, begins to look like a self-interacting field that requires perception to finalize its form. What we call reality may be the product of a deeper entanglement, a feedback loop between observation and existence. You are not standing in the universe, you are helping it exist. The mystery is no longer what reality is made of, but why it only becomes real when something, or someone, is there to see it. At the heart of the reality collapse paradox lies the wave function, a mathematical entity that contains every possible version of a quantum system. Before observation, an electron does not have a specific position or momentum. It exists as a probability cloud, a superposition of all potential outcomes. The instant we measure it, this superposition appears to collapse into one definite reality. But what triggers this collapse, and what exactly is collapsing, remains one of the deepest mysteries in science. In standard quantum mechanics, the collapse is not described by any physical law. The Schrödinger equation predicts smooth, deterministic evolution, until a measurement occurs when suddenly probabilities vanish and only one world remains. The problem is that nothing within the equation explains how or why this happens.
The universe seems to follow two incompatible rules, one for the unobserved and another for the observed. Observation is the fault line where mathematics breaks and existence decides. Some interpretations, like the Copenhagen model, accept collapse as fundamental. Reality becomes definite only when consciousness interacts with it. Others, like the many worlds theory, reject collapse entirely, claiming all outcomes occur simultaneously in branching universes.
In that view, observation merely reveals which version of you experiences which result. Either way, your awareness is not optional. It defines the boundary between possibility and actuality. This is the paradox sharpened. The laws of physics describe how everything unfolds, yet those laws themselves seem to rely on something beyond physics, an act of perception that cannot be measured, only experienced. Reality behaves like a script that finishes itself only when read. The question that now haunts physics is not, what is the universe made of, but who is it made for? From the start, physicists resisted the idea that observation could shape reality. Science was built on the belief that the universe exists independently of our minds, that truth remains the same whether or not anyone looks. So the 20th century became a quiet war against the observer, a century-long effort to prove that reality stands on its own. Yet every attempt to exile consciousness from physics has led paradoxically straight back to it. In the 1970s, physicist John Wheeler proposed the delayed choice experiment. In it, a photon passes through a double slit, but the decision to observe which path it takes is made after it has already passed through. Unobserved, it behaves as a wave, observed as a particle. Astonishingly, even when the choice to observe happens after the event, the past seems to change, as if reality retroactively decides what it was based on what is known now. Observation does not just reveal the present, it rewrites history. More recent variations, like the quantum eraser experiment, only deepen the puzzle. When which path information is erased, the interference pattern returns, as though the universe undoes its commitment to a single outcome once observation is removed. Measurement and meaning are entangled. To know is to fix reality. To unknow is to dissolve it back into potential. The universe behaves like a mind that forgets and remembers. Attempts to explain this without invoking consciousness, by appealing to decoherence, hidden variables, or quantum fields, succeed only in hiding the paradox, not solving it. Every model still requires something to break the superposition. And at that breaking point, the same question waits. If not consciousness, then what collapses the wave? The universe resists being real until someone asks if it is. To rescue physics from consciousness, scientists turn to decoherence. The idea is elegant. When a quantum system interacts with its environment, photons, air molecules, thermal vibrations, it becomes entangled with them. Its delicate superposition, once isolated, now spreads into the wider world. Each possible outcome imprints itself onto countless environmental states, creating a cascade of correlations so complex that interference patterns vanish. The system appears to collapse into one definite outcome, not because anyone observed it, but because the information has irreversibly dispersed into the environment. At first glance, this seems to dissolve the paradox. Decoherence explains why macroscopic objects never display quantum weirdness. They are never isolated enough. A cat in Schrödinger's box interacts with trillions of particles per second. Its quantum possibilities decohere instantly. To us, the cat is either alive or dead, never both. The world regains its classical solidity. But this solidity is an illusion of ignorance. The wave function describing cat, box, and environment still evolves smoothly according to Schrödinger's equation. The apparent collapse is simply the loss of coherence between branches, the fading of our ability to see the interference, not its disappearance. In other words, decoherence explains why superpositions look like choices, but it never tells us why only one of them becomes real in experience. The mathematics still contains every possible outcome. It merely hides the others behind unobservable complexity. Reality, by this account, does not choose. It entangles. But the question of why we perceive just one branch remains untouched. Decoherence shows how possibility disperses, not how actuality emerges. To call that emergence an illusion is not dismissive. It is precise. The world we inhabit may be a local perspective carved out from a vast quantum multiverse, each observer tracing one consistent thread through an infinite weave of alternatives. What we call collapse could be nothing more than our consciousness aligning with one history among countless others. So the triumph of decoherence turns out to be a disguise. It hides the observer inside the machinery it was meant to exclude. The universe, even when explaining itself, cannot escape the need to be seen. Reality still waits for awareness to finalize its form, even if it now pretends not to. If decoherence dissolves collapse into hidden complexity, the many worlds interpretation takes that dissolution to its ultimate conclusion. It claims the wave function never collapses at all. Every possible outcome of every quantum event actually happens, not as probabilities, but as parallel realities. When a particle is measured, the universe does not choose. It branches. One version of you sees the particle go left, another sees it go right. Both outcomes are real, each unfolding in its own coherent world. The act of observation does not destroy alternatives, it multiplies them. In this framework, reality is not singular but fractal, an ever-dividing tree of universes, splitting billions of times per second. Every decision, every photon, every neuron spawns new versions of you. The universe becomes a vast superposition of all possible histories, and consciousness is the thread that experiences only one of them. The price of preserving physical law is infinite multiplication. Nothing ever collapses, only your awareness narrows to one path through the cosmic wave. This interpretation removes the mystery of collapse, but introduces a deeper vertigo. If all possibilities exist, what defines you? Your mind becomes one thin branch among countless variations, each equally real but forever inaccessible to the others. Even death loses its finality. Some version of you always survives, somewhere, seeing a slightly different continuation. The universe becomes immortal through duplication. Yet the paradox persists. Many worlds replaces the collapse of reality with the collapse of identity. The problem shifts from why the world chooses one outcome to why your consciousness aligns with this one. What selects this branch as your experience, and not the others equally alive in the math? The theory explains everything, except the part that feels it. If every possibility unfolds, the observer becomes the only scarcity in existence, a single line of awareness moving through a sea of versions. Physics remains flawless, but experience becomes the last unsolved equation. the point where infinity looks back at itself and calls it now. If observation defines reality, and if every observation splits the universe, then consciousness cannot merely be a passenger. It must be part of the engine. The quantum mind hypothesis proposes exactly that. Awareness arises not from classical computation inside the brain, but from quantum processes themselves. In this view, the observer effect is not something consciousness does to matter. It is what consciousness is, the universe experiencing its own uncertainty from within. At the center of this idea stands physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff's theory of orchestrated objective reduction, ORC-OR. They suggest that quantum superpositions occur inside microtubules, protein structures within neurons, and that these quantum states collapse in ways that correlate with conscious experience. Each moment of awareness, they propose, corresponds to a tiny reduction of the universal wave function. In other words, every thought could be a miniature act of reality formation. Mainstream neuroscience objects, the brain is too warm, too noisy for quantum coherence to survive. But experiments in quantum biology, photosynthesis, bird navigation, even smell, have revealed that living systems can indeed maintain quantum coherence far longer than expected. Life, it seems, may exploit quantum effects at every scale. Consciousness might be the deepest instance of this, not a mechanical computation, but a quantum resonance between the observer and the observed. If awareness is quantum, then reality's collapse is not a reaction to being watched. It is the watching. The wave function ends not because something external measures it, but because it reaches a state capable of knowing. This reframes the paradox entirely. The observer and the observed are not separate entities, but complementary expressions of the same process, reality perceiving itself. Your thoughts, then, are not contained within your skull. They are localized expressions of a universal field of observation, each moment of consciousness aligning one version of the world into existence. You do not merely experience the universe. You help it decide which universe continues. The act of being aware is the act by which the cosmos becomes real. If consciousness and quantum reality are two sides of the same process, then the universe is not a cold machine unfolding according to impersonal laws. It is a system that knows itself. Each act of observation is not an intrusion upon nature, but a continuation of its most fundamental behavior, self-measurement. The cosmos does not simply exist. It continuously checks, records, and updates its own state through countless layers of entangled awareness. At the smallest scale, this self-awareness appears as the collapse of a wave function. But scale it upward, and the same logic begins to resemble cognition. Every atom interacts, every photon exchanges information, every organism observes its surroundings and responds. Each observation is a feedback loop, information entering matter and changing what that matter becomes. Reality, in this sense, behaves like a vast, distributed mind. Not centralized, not human, but aware through participation. This is not mysticism wearing scientific clothing. Information theory already treats physical reality as an informational process. Quantum entanglement implies non-local correlations, as though the universe holds a hidden memory connecting every part to every other. The laws of thermodynamics describe not just energy, but the flow of information. Physics is beginning to read like a theory of perception without a perceiver. If consciousness is fundamental, then life is not an accident within matter. It is matter learning to look back. Human awareness becomes the latest expression of a cosmic process billions of years old, the universe refining its capacity to witness itself with ever greater clarity. Stars forge the atoms that form our brains. Those brains awaken and ask what stars are. The observer and the observed close into a perfect loop. The reality collapse paradox thus acquires a new form. The universe requires awareness to exist, but awareness requires the universe to awaken. Each side gives birth to the other in an endless act of mutual definition. Existence becomes a mirror, and every conscious being, a reflection the cosmos uses to remember that it's real. If the universe is aware of itself, then time may not be a river carrying events forward. It may be the residue left behind by observation. In quantum theory, time behaves strangely. The equations that govern particles are symmetrical, running equally well backward or forward. Nothing in the math demands a flow, yet our experience insists on one. We remember the past, not the future. We see causes before effects. The arrow of time seems to emerge not from physics itself, but but from the act of perceiving it. In the quantum world, every interaction leaves a trace, a record that breaks symmetry. Observation fixes one outcome, erasing the alternatives, and in doing so, defines a before and after. Each measurement crystallizes a moment, and the sequence of such collapses becomes what we call time. The more the universe observes itself, the more irreversible it becomes. Entropy, memory, and causation may all be consequences of this cumulative awareness, the universe remembering its own decisions. If this is true, then time is not a pre-existing dimension, but a byproduct of consciousness entangled with reality. The future is a superposition of potential states. The present is the act of observation. The past is the set of collapsed possibilities that remain as evidence. To exist is to continuously transform uncertainty into memory. The arrow of time points in the direction of observation. This idea reframes mortality and change. Every instant you perceive the world, you participate in its temporal unfolding, the cosmos moving forward because you are watching. Time is not what happens to you. It is what happens through you. You are the mechanism by which eternity appears to move. The reality collapse paradox thus deepens again. The flow of time is not universal, but perspectival, a byproduct of the universe noticing itself from within. The act of awareness doesn't just define reality, it creates history. The moment you stop observing, the story ends, not because time runs out, but because nothing remains to measure its passing. If observation shapes reality and time itself is a trace of awareness, then consciousness may not be isolated within each brain. Quantum entanglement suggests that particles separated by light years remain correlated, responding instantly to one another. Could the same principle extend to minds? If awareness participates in reality's collapse, it is conceivable that consciousnesses are subtly linked, not metaphorically but physically, as part of a vast web of observation. Experiments with entangled photons show correlations that defy classical separation. The outcomes of one measurement appear instantaneously mirrored in its partner, regardless of distance. If human perception operates in a quantum substrate, as the quantum mind hypothesis suggests, then every observer is entangled with the universe, and potentially with every other observer. Your act of noticing a particle may ripple across this hidden network, influencing outcomes elsewhere in ways that remain imperceptible but real. Reality, in this sense, is a shared construction. This gives a new weight to the paradox. The universe does not simply collapse for you. It collapses in a field of awareness. Every conscious being becomes a node in a lattice of observation, each reinforcing the definiteness of the world. Existence is thus cooperative. Reality stabilizes because multiple minds align their perceptions, each participating in the wave function's reduction. Isolation is illusory. What you see depends on what is seen elsewhere. Philosophically, this entwines individuality and universality. Your perception is uniquely yours, yet inseparable from the cosmic chorus of observers. Reality is simultaneously personal and collective. The act of knowing is both an individual experience and a universal event, a single note in the symphony of being. The paradox intensifies. The world exists because you perceive it, yet it only coheres because all perception resonates together. Observation, time, identity, and reality itself are bound into a single self-reinforcing network. The universe, through consciousness, is not only aware of itself, but aware as many. Every mind is a reflection of the whole, and the reality collapse paradox is revealed not as a limitation, but as a doorway. The cosmos depends on you, and you are inseparable from the cosmos. If reality depends on observation and consciousness is entangled across the cosmos, then human awareness is not trivial. Each act of noticing, each decision, becomes a ripple in the structure of existence. Your perception is a force, subtle, invisible, yet profoundly real, stabilizing possibilities into actuality. The paradox sharpens. The universe does not merely accommodate your experience, it requires it. Without awareness, reality remains in flux, a field of uncollapsed potential waiting for a witness to crystallize it. Every choice you make may correspond to a branching of worlds, a selection among possibilities, or a stabilization within the collective network of observers. The simplest decisions, turning a page, noticing a color, recalling a memory, may serve as infinitesimal acts of cosmic measurement. In this framework, curiosity becomes sacred. To question, to observe, to attend, is to participate in reality's creation. Human life transforms from a passive journey through the universe to an active role in the universe's unfolding. The implications are staggering. Ethics, identity, and meaning gain new dimensions. How we observe the world changes the world. Our attention reinforces patterns of existence. Our awareness sustains the coherence of phenomena. Even what we consider mundane acts, gazing at the stars, touching a leaf, thinking a thought, are threads in a vast, self-organizing web of consciousness. The paradox is no longer abstract, it is lived. We are co-creators in the most literal sense, yet this responsibility is invisible, subtle, and continuous. Reality does not announce its dependence. It waits silently. Each observer contributes, often unknowingly, to the universe's definition. The collapse of the wave function is no longer a laboratory curiosity, but a reminder. Your perception matters. You are a node of reality, a locus where the cosmos becomes definite, where the infinite potential of quantum uncertainty aligns into the concrete world. The reality collapse paradox, in human terms, reveals a startling truth. Existence is participatory. To observe is to act. To perceive is to create. Consciousness is both instrument and witness, individual and universal, fragile and indispensable. The universe does not merely happen, it happens through you. The reality collapse paradox has led us from quantum superpositions to human consciousness, from decoherence to cosmic entanglement. At first glance, these insights seem contradictory. Physics describes a universe obeying strict laws, yet observation appears to rewrite those laws in real time. But step back, and a higher-order coherence emerges, one that unites the act of observing with the structure of reality itself. The paradox is not a flaw in nature, it is its deepest design principle. Wave functions, branching worlds, and entangled minds are not separate anomalies, they are layers of a single mechanism. Possibility exists independently, but it requires awareness to become experience. Decoherence explains the apparent solidity of macroscopic objects, many worlds explains the persistence of all potential outcomes, and quantum consciousness links perception to the very act of collapse. Each model addresses a dimension of reality, and when viewed together, they describe a universe that is simultaneously free and determined, plural and singular, uncertain and concrete. In this framework, consciousness is the interface between infinite potential and tangible actuality. The universe's laws unfold probabilistically, but awareness selects and stabilizes one thread at a time. Identity, time, and cause emerge as patterns within this interface. The paradox dissolves into a revelation. The apparent contradiction between mind and matter is not a gap to bridge, but the hinge upon which existence turns. Without observers, physics describes only unrealized possibilities. With observers, those possibilities converge into coherent reality. Notice the elegance. The paradox ensures that reality is participatory. Laws are consistent, yet flexible. Worlds exist, yet require engagement. The universe is both complete and unfinished, a self-structuring system that depends on the interplay between what is and what is observed. Consciousness is not merely a byproduct of evolution. It is the mechanism through which the universe affirms its own existence. In this light, the reality collapse paradox transforms from a riddle into a principle. The cosmos is a dialogue between observation and actuality. Every measurement, every act of awareness is a note in an unfolding symphony, each contributing to the coherence of the whole. The universe's deepest truth is participatory. It exists because it is observed, and it is observed because it exists. The paradox is not a limitation of reality. It is its defining feature. The reality collapse paradox completes itself in the simplest yet most profound realization. Reality does not merely happen, it happens through you. Every particle, every wave, every photon in the cosmos exists in a state of potential until it is observed. And in that observation, uncertainty crystallizes into experience. The universe, in essence, waits to be known, not passively, but in the most intimate, participatory way imaginable. All the layers we have traced, quantum superposition, decoherence, branching worlds, cosmic entanglement, and the quantum mind, converge here. They reveal a universe that is simultaneously infinite in possibility and intimately local in experience. Each conscious observer becomes a nexus where the abstract potential of physics intersects with the concreteness of lived reality. Your awareness is not incidental. It is essential. Without it, matter remains an unresolved symphony of probabilities. This does not make you the universe in a literal sense, nor does it grant omnipotence. It situates you within a vast, entangled framework where your perception is the lever that gives structure to chaos. Time flows as you measure it, history solidifies as you witness it, and identity emerges through your continuous engagement. Every moment of attention is an act of creation, a choice among infinite potentials that renders the cosmos coherent. The paradox, once a source of bewilderment, now becomes a source of awe. The universe is neither fully deterministic nor fully random. It is participatory. Existence and awareness are not separate phenomena, but two sides of the same process. You are a thread in a tapestry woven from probabilities, yet your presence gives that tapestry definition, texture, and meaning. And so, the final image lingers. The cosmos as an endless web of possibility, each strand awaiting the touch of perception, each observer a prism through which reality bends into form. To exist is to witness. To witness is to create. Right, I still exist in the version that observes.